Now, in the wintertime, it's indoor dining only, but summer is patio season, and weather permitting, it is the absolute spot to be. Now, I decided that tonight we would save the patio for breakfast tomorrow morning since the sunrise hits the valley so beautifully, and also the Confederation Lounge, as you see here, is absolutely stunning. The Confederation Lounge was named after the Fathers of Confederation when Canada was established in 1864, which is depicted by this painting in the background, and the man standing in the middle is Sir John A. Macdonald, Canada's first Prime Minister and the man that this hotel was named after. And although he championed the Canadian Pacific to build a coast-to-coast railway in 1885, the real visionary behind the Hotel Macdonald was Charles Melville Hayes. Hayes was a dreamer of his day. The Chateau Laurier in Ottawa, the Fort Garry in Winnipeg, and the Macdonald here were the only three Grand Railway hotels that his railway, the Grand Trunk Pacific, would complete, but Hayes actually had planned for 5 more, including the Chateau Capelle in Regina, the Chateau Myatt Springs outside Jasper, the Chateau Mount Robson on the doorstep of Mount Robson, and the Chateau Prince Rupert. Imagine the Royal York in Toronto, but on the edge of the Pacific in Prince Rupert. The Chateau Myatt Hot Springs was his answer to the Banff Springs because his hot springs were hotter, and the Chateau Mount Robson was his answer to the Chateau Lake Louise because Mount Robson was the tallest peak in the Canadian Rockies, and Prince Rupert was 48 hours closer to Asia than Canadian Pacific was in Vancouver for transporting passengers and freight. Hayes even drew up the blueprints for what would later be the Hotel Vancouver, completed by Canadian National and Canadian Pacific in a joint adventure in 1939, which was actually the focus of episode 4 in this series. And considering how well built all of his hotels were, it's crazy to imagine what could have been here in Regina, Jasper, Mount Robson, and Prince Rupert, because they did break ground for all 4 of them in 1913, but never saw the completion of any of them because on April 15th of 1912, Hayes was traveling from Europe across the North Atlantic after securing funding to complete his ocean-to-ocean railway and, more importantly, his network of railway hotels that he had envisioned to transform Canada's landscape. And Bruce Ismay, head of the White Star Line, had invited Hayes to travel back on his most luxurious ship to date to discuss a deal between the White Star Line and Grand Trunk Pacific to bring passengers from Europe to Canada and Prince Rupert over to Asia. And that ocean liner was the Titanic. And at 2 a.m. on April 15th, Hayes would perish in the icy North Atlantic waters and never see his ocean-to-ocean railway or luxury hotels with a vision for a better Canada completed. And although we'll never know what could have been, what we do know is that along the river valley in Edmonton, the Hotel Macdonald was as far west as Grand Trunk Pacific made it before going bankrupt and absorbed into Canadian National Railways in 1920. And I think that's the coolest part of these Grand Railway hotels. What could have been, and the history behind it and the stories that tied it all together. But there's plenty more stories for another time, including next week's episode at the Jasper Park Lodge. Now back in the lounge, Bella got this cotton candy skies drink, which I thought was so funky the way they presented it. And then for dinner, I got the Dos Tacos and a steak, which was incredibly well seasoned, and Bella got the chicken burger with a side salad. But to be honest, it wasn't great. Her chicken was burnt and pretty dry, and the salad had definitely seen better days. Now for dessert, I had my eyes locked on the Perry's breasts, but because Bella's chicken sandwich and salad were less than expected, they ended up giving us a complimentary dessert in the house, which was the Perry's breast, which again, I was going to order it regardless. But disappointingly enough, it did not look quite what I expected from the Instagram photo that I saw earlier in the day that sold me on ordering it. And all in all, it just tasted like it was slapped together last minute. But hoping that dinner was a bit of a fluke, we would head to the Harvest Room the next morning for breakfast on the patio, and we started things off with a nice hot cup of joe. Bella opted for the hotel's signature eggs benny with a side of fruit. I did the Harvest breakfast with 2 eggs, sausage, potatoes, and sourdough toast. Overall, it was okay. The food wasn't overly warm, and it did take quite a bit for it to come. I don't think that the breakfast was worth $100 to say the least, but our hotel reservation did come included with breakfast, so it's all good in my books. Now, dinner later that night and breakfast the following morning was pretty much the same from previous. I got a bowl of lettuce with minimal toppings, seasonings, and just a touch of chicken. Bella's salmon was pretty much the same. It seemed like everything was lacking salt and any seasoning at all here outside of my steak from the night before. And I think the guests will only come to your restaurant if you're able to offer something that they just can't get at home. And although the jumbo prawns and the espresso martini for dessert were absolutely fantastic, I can confidently say that I'd be able to make all of these dishes better myself at home, which, to be honest, was really disappointing because just down the road in Calgary at the Palliser Hotel, there's not been a single bite that I didn't absolutely love, and everything top to bottom was flawless over there. And as well as the rest of the meals that we've had at all the other Fairmont hotels in this journey so far. So I hope the Hotel Macdonald can see this and improve on that, because I really wanted to love the hotel, and especially their culinary experience. I'm a foodie. Although the dining experience here was less than what you expect from a 4-star hotel, you do come here though for the location.